What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another deck profile here on TCG University for the card game UniVersus. My name's Tam, and today I'm going to be going over Tyler's Akuma 2-dot list that he played for the Budget Battle Campus Championship. Before we jump into the profile, though, I want to give a big shout out to our sponsors this week, Rochester CCG. They're sponsor this entire tournament, as well as any of the decks that you see here on the Campus Championship. We are putting out on Rochester CCG for you to purchase it as a one-click buy. There will be a link down in the description down below, and so make sure you check out their site, not just for the decks that we made here, but any other singles you might need for any other pet projects you got going on. So, with that out of the way, let's jump into the deck. All right, so Akuma. If you have not seen one of my deck profiles before, basically the way this works is as opposed to reading off verbatim what the character does, I want to talk more about what the deck wants to do, the idea, the theme behind the deck. And so what does Akuma want to do? Well, he is an aggressive monster, and this deck is no exception. He wants to take and stuff cards into his card pool face down, essentially clogging his own card pool, in order to make his things absolutely massive, as well as we can possibly put them in up front. That almost never happens. Here says, response, flip a card in my flip a card in my card pool. My opponent's check gets -2. Failing the check does not end the combat phase. And so basically what this card says is, if I take and I've got cards inside of my card pool, I can flip defensively on my opponent's turn for a big disruption and make it way harder for them to play out their turn. Makes them be playing less cards, and then my attacks are just going to get absolutely disgustingly large. So let's just jump into the deck, and it'll all come together. So the first attack that we're playing is for Dalek Devil Slayer. This is it only has a static. Face downs in my card pool don't count towards progressive difficulty. It is a 5 difficulty attack though, so you have to be careful. Checking poorly is one of the big banes of Akuma, hilariously enough, and so. As I'm playing this card, this is a really good opener, really good starting piece when it comes to playing the deck. It's a 5 high for 5, just stats are really good, but it's actually a 5 high for 6 is the first attack because of Akuma taking it and putting a card in the card pool, as well as it's really good as a finisher because if the card's not counting towards face down's not counting towards progressive, it means that as I'm playing Akuma, I get more value out of playing bigger strings. Up next, we're playing for Daihatsu Shoten. This card is the second strongest card of the deck. Man, Akuma's got so many good things. He says add in his own face down for extra stats. Akuma says stats. It also has Desperation 3 in the same static that Dalek Devil Slayer has, as well as a 0 mid block. If you notice, both of these are 0 mid blocks. And yes, they don't count towards progressive on blocks as well. Really, really solid stuff. And then I guess the real kill card of the deck is I'm just going to call it Susan. Big shout outs to Ben Shoemaker. This is a powerful 2 reversal, has the same static, doesn't count as progressive. It got a 0 low block, holy cannoli. And then it says you can remove face downs in your card pool in addition to momentum to pay for this card's powerful cost. So it is super possible. Ability does say your attack only is for us to play a block, play our reversal with Akuma, add in a card face down, and then use this for, it's got +1 damage off of Akuma because of the face down, stun 1, and then use this in order to give us more stats. So really, really solid stuff. At one point this was on the table for a card to be banned just because of just how obnoxious this card is. Its stats are a 5 mid for 4 with powerful 2, and you can use it, like, it's just got so much synergy going on. Really, really well designed card for what Akuma wants to do. Up next, we've got the non-Akuma attacks. So these cards will be counting towards progressive difficulty as we play them. We're playing for Shadow Slicer. One of the big issues with Akuma is the fact that he can't draw that many attacks, and Shadow Slicer goes from being 1 attack into 4 attacks. It's well documented that I don't necessarily like this card. I think this card is way, way, way too good. And if you are having an issue with this card, make sure you go out to Patreon. I've got an article written out there with a big, long deck list of every card that interacts with this card and the reason they're good and not good and so on and so forth. And so that's just patreon.com/TCG University. Big, long article. Plug out of the way, though. This card pushes Akuma's already aggressive strategy even bigger because, like, as we said, drawing attacks is not Akuma's forte. That's not really what he does, and that's the second main way that he loses, is he just does not find an aggressive enough hand in order to break your wall. Well, Shadow Slicer is the way that we're going to break that wall. Desperation 3 means that I can Akuma with it twice, and then I'm still playing these on a 5 difficulty. Really, really strong. And then my last card is for Hatefish. This is such an interesting, cool card. I'm really glad Tyler included this in the deck. So this card says, if they're at if my opponent's at Desperation, which Akuma can very quickly do with all his cards in his kit, double attack speed or damage bonus this attack receives. And so at Desperation, it gets +2 speed, so we can make it +4 speed, so it's a 4 low for 7. With Akuma, it's a 4 low for 8 with stun 1. Or we can take it if this is a later in the chain. Let's say we have these face downs. I enhance on Hate Fish, and say that the next speed or damage bonus that I get is increased. I'll now Akuma add in the top card in my card pool. Instead of getting +4 damage, it actually gets +8 damage. And so they better have that low block. It's possible we just accidentally blow them out, as well as there's a card that we're going to get to actually next called Enlightened by Defeat that says +X speed. And so instead of, if we had the 3 cards, we could instead give it +6 speed, which is 7 low for whatever is just insane, right? And so there's a lot of really neat utility that goes along with Hate Fish. I think it's a novelty card. It's a really good budget option. I'm not positive it's going to end up in the final deck list though. On to the asset. We are playing 1 Hanging Gardens. This is an old card that says response commit after check is played. It gets +2 for each face down card in my card pool with Akuma on my turns. It's just guarantees that I pass something. So let's say the Hate Fish is one of the strongest cards that I can play late into my chain. I play the Hate Fish. I've got 3 cards in my card pool. Hey, it passed. Just +6 to my check. Yeah, we got it. So just really solid card, as well as discard momentum, draw a card. As we said, Akuma's got an issue with raw power. Onto the foundations. As opposed to just laying out the foundations and just like saying what they are, I want to talk more about their jobs, their roles. And so the main 4 categories we've broken these up into are aggression, flow, defense, and disruption. And so the first aggressive card that we have is for Enlightened by Defeat. Once again, this card was also on the chopping block just because of how rampant Akuma was. Enhanced commits attack is +1 speed and +1 damage for each of my face down cards in my card pool. So if I can play 3 attacks, which is super easy when I'm playing just strings of attacks that don't count towards progressive, I now take and say this attack is +3/+3, not including Akuma's plus damage. This if I get 2 of these out on by turn 2, I've pretty much got that game in the bag. The response flip is almost irrelevant. It just doesn't matter. We're playing 4, the power to connect realms. This card is not normally in your standard Akuma list, but I think it's really good here on the budget, just because like one of the easy ways to lose to Akuma is my opponent happens to build up a staging area before I can attempt to kill them, and then they hold a bunch of cards in their hand. This card says after I play a powerful attack, which all of his attacks have the powerful keyword, I will take and discard a card out of your hand and draw a card. The draw card doesn't matter, but making sure that they lose their resources is what matters. I'll play a Dalek Devil Slayer and make you discard 3 cards out of the 5 that you had. Okay, you only have 2. Sure, you blocked this one. You got 1 card left in your hand. I'll now play Shadow Slicer. All right, you can't block all 4 of them. It's just not possible. You don't have enough cards in your hand to do so. Next, we're playing double admission fees. Normally, this would be a 4-0, but we are on a bit of a budget restraint here. This card just says, add a card from my staging area to my card pool face down. This deck gets +2 or -2 speed. So the reason this card is absolutely insane inside of Akuma is you got all these cards that say that they don't count towards progressive. And the real mean card to do this with is with Congo Susan. So with admission fees in my staging area, I can take and just start loading up my card pool face down with all these -2 speeds, then take and hit a 0 mid block with these not counting towards progressive, response, play a reversal. Once again, my face downs don't count towards progressive, and so I just have to check this on a 6. Oh, I checked a 5. I'll commit literally in whatever foundation I want. With admission fees, I build in another foundation. With Akuma, I build another one, and now it gets +2 speed off the admission fees. It gets +5 damage and stun 1 off of Akuma, and then I use Susan's ability to remove all of these cards from the game in order to give it another plus whatever damage. These 2 cards in combo together are absolutely insane. So if you could pick up 4 before these rotate, you definitely should. But with that said, these are the next set to rotate, so maybe it's not necessarily worth your budget. There are other options that we could play. Up next on the aggressive chart, we're playing for a Worthy Vessel. Pay 1 vitality in order to give it +2 damage. We just got to poke in there a little bit deeper. I think the better option is actually more of a flow card, or excuse me, a disruption card. Enhance, flip, or move 1 card from my opponent's card pool, or from their discard pile. Getting rid of their Shadow Slicers is also a very solid plan. I was looking for it. Their Shadow Slicers is a very solid plan. And pay 1 for -2 damage might be the thing that saves you. We do only have 26 life as a 6 size character, so you never know. We're playing 4 new Empress of Nether Realms. As I said before Shadow Slicer, one of the big issues that Akuma has is just making sure I can draw a kill turn. And so a new Empress helps me out with that. Pay 3 of my 26 Vitality only matters whenever it goes to 0, and so I'll get an extra card, hopefully an extra resource. On to the flow cards in our deck. We're playing 4 Drained by a Kiss. This card puts in so much work, and as long as Shadow Slicer exists inside of this deck, you definitely have to play it because of the fact it says after your attack resolves, flip it. Because of the way that Shadow Slicer works, I do only get to play this card X amount of times, and so with the 4 Shadow Slicers, the best way to play this is I take and I've got my 1 Drained by a Kiss. I play Shadow Slicer. I remove the other one, lift it up, play it, remove this one, lift it up, play it, before I lift it up, I play it. After I've played my 4th Shadow Slicer, after it's done resolving, I'll flip my Drain by a Kiss and flip the Shadow Slicer in my card pool. Now, whenever I take and I play my Devil Slayer, normally the Shadow Slicer will be played on a the Devil will be played on a 5+1/6, but because of me flipping the card in my card pool, it doesn't count, and it's just extra damage on all my other attacks. So the Shadow Slicer is just getting a ton of value off of playing Drain by a Kiss, as well as there are plenty of other options for playing cards that interact inside of the card pool. Like flipping a Reduction is really, really solid. Doing a bunch of other really sweet stuff to stop my opponent from doing things. Drain by Kiss is a very valid card, and I think it's going to be played way more inside this upcoming meta. More flow cards. We're playing 1 True Identity. It just makes all your attacks super easy. If I get True Identity out with Akuma, it says that the normally the second attack that I play, I have to commit a Foundation. Well, I've already committed it with True Identity. It's just more insurance, the more attacks that you're going to be playing. We're playing 4 Hell's Reach. This card just says enhance once per game, ready it. Because of its flip a cost, the way that you can look at flip costs, if you don't have anything that adds cards, Foundations back to your hand is just once per game. Hey, I checked a little poorly. I'll flip both of these. Hey, I didn't check poorly. Maybe I can try and kill you or stay alive or whatever you got to use it for. But it's definitely a flow card. I'm trying to kill people. In the same way of the Azure Nightmare, enhance, discard a card, ready this guy up, playable while committed. The burn stuff doesn't necessarily matter because Akuma's pumping out so much damage, but just being able to re-ready a card back up, it is a quicker choice to commit than Hell's Reach because once per game, once per turn. More flow. We've got 4 Orphan Alchemists. As I said, one of the main reasons that Akuma doesn't kill people is he doesn't draw enough cards. And Orphan Alchemist says that the precautions that we've taken in order to draw more cards of the Shadow Slice are relevant because they can't remove them with things like Fatality or so on and so forth. And so, hey, don't remove my Fatality don't remove my Shadow Slice with your Fatality and let me draw a card is super, super relevant, as well as a 1/6, a 2 high block. We didn't even mention the Azure Nightmare has a 1/6, 3 high, so it just covers that of the zone. 6s are insane in Akuma. And then my last flow card, I grabbed too many. My last flow card is Outworld's Heiress. Hey, you've got a card over there that's stopping me. You've got a disruption card. Well, this card is just going to stop that disruption card. My first enhance is going to be I'll pay my Vitality, remove this card from the game, put it back in your hand. You don't get to play it on the turns that I'm going to be playing all my Shadow Slicers and my Hate Fish and my Susans and so on and so forth. So it is a once per turn get rid of an issue. It's a very, very good flow. And then the only defensive card that I have in the entire deck is 4 Uniting Rebels. It's a 0/6 with a 3 mid block, so it covers that last block zone on the 6 checks. And it says, Desperation Hands, gain a Vitality. We do only have 26. This says we've got 30 sometimes. I will say that the more defensive that you are allowed to play with this character, the more you can stretch this out, the scarier he becomes. He does want to burst as quick as we can, as early as possible, but sometimes, luck of the draw says it doesn't happen. And so if we don't have a way to pseudo-stabilize ourselves in order to get back on our feet, we're going to lose. All right, yeah, that was Tyler's Akuma 2-Dot Budget Battle Deck Profile. If you like the profile, make sure you let him know. Show some love down in the comments down below, as well as check out Rochester CCG. You can find the entire deck, as I said, at the top of the deck profile. And lastly, if you want to catch all these matches live, go to twitch.tv/TCG University. Every Tuesday at 6 o'clock, we've got a new theme, a new 8-person bracket ready to battle it out for your amusement, entertainment, and knowledge. So with that said, thank you much for watching the show, and stay alert.